Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. In 2021, Zenith launched the Chronomaster Sport, a timepiece that was, at the time, a little bit controversial because of its resemblance to a famous chronograph that hails from Geneva. Well, here we are now in 2025, and we're discussing the evolution of the species. This is a variant of the Chronomaster Sport launched in 2024, and it embodies a little bit more authentic Zenith identity. That is, you don't look at it and instantly think that looks like a brand starting with an R. I should also mention, this is not the so-called Aaron Rodgers. The tribute to his ill-fated tenure with the Jets came out in 2023 and has Arabic numerals on the dial. This one is team agnostic. So, the Chronomaster Sport Green dial, a 2024 release, still 41 millimeters in diameter, though I measure at the exterior of the bezel only 40.5, which is the widest spot, so go figure. I'm going to call this 41 because they call it a 41. It measures 40.5. It is 13.8 millimeters thick. Case is steel, bezel is ceramic, lug tip to lug tip. Just the case, 47 millimeters. Add the end links to the bracelet. Now we have a span of 49.5 millimeters across the wrist. It is still 20 millimeters, the spacing between the lug horns. I'll throw this watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Between my love of green and my love of Zenith, this is a watch I could easily see myself wearing. And on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears quite nicely. I would argue that the watch probably wears best on a smaller wrist if you put it on a strap, and a green strap is available for this watch, but you get a lot more value with the bracelet. So let's say on a strap, this watch could be worn on a 15 centimeter circumference wrist, and on the bracelet, 16 centimeters circumference and up. Now, it will slip fairly easily under a cuff. It's not too thick, and all jackets will be accommodated. Get one last look at this watch down the barrel and over the top. A little note about the name. So, for many years, people have wondered, is it Zenith, Zenith, or is there another pronunciation? And in this instance, there's actually another. If you were in Switzerland, it would be something a lot more like Zenith, whereas in the United States, they typically recommend that their dealers call them Zenith, and Zenith makes televisions. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the bracelet. You can see fully integrated in the sense that the end link conforms to the case, not integrated in the sense that you're locked into a proprietary design. Any 20 millimeter strap will work right here. Taking a quick look at the bracelet itself, it's a 3-link design. It's got a little shoulder that's polished. It's got satin. It's got polish down the center. It has a little bit of a taper down towards the clasp. You can see removable links are fixed in place using screws. It's polished outboard. There is some polish on the bevel and the center line. We have differential link size, gives it a nice, handsome aesthetic. You can see this one actually still features packaging plastic from when it was delivered to its owner, so you're going to get an outstanding value here, as the watch, for the most part, has barely been worn. A great option. Not great for the original owner, but great for you as the next owner. We have adjustability via 5 pairs of divots inside the clasp, so you can use your strap tool to move the spring bar in and out to adjust the fit. And then we have a single fold right here with a little clamshell lock. We'll show how that works right here. See, we have these little pin snap spring-loaded ball bearings that ensure the clamshell will latch securely. And if the clamshell should ever wear down, you can see it's fixed by screws. So that is a part that can be replaced over time if its tolerances wane with use. We have the little Zenith logo, the guiding star, the crown, a little curve under the crown, so you can see that little hollow. That's so you can dig your nail in and set the time. Really cool. Taking a look at the case, you can see that it looks nothing like the famous Cosmograph, although comparisons were made back in 2021 when the Chronomaster Sport arrived. The case profile, the lug profiles are so different that from these angles, you would never confuse the two. Taking a look, we do have 100-meter water resistance in spite of the lack of a screw-down crown, so you can absolutely swim with this watch. We have a ceramic bezel, so the green ceramic is very scratch-resistant, and it acts as sort of like a heat shield for blows that might hit your watch. Between the sapphire and the ceramic, this watch isn't going to accumulate a lot of scratches. Now, you will note there is a rather explosive foudroyant on the dial, so the lightning seconds hand allows you to read 1/10 of a second. The way this works is it takes the traditional 10 beat per second oscillation rate, 5 hertz, of the Zenith Primero movement, and it spreads those 10 seconds over a large angular distance on the dial, so it's easy to read the tenths. Previously, it was somewhat difficult to read tenths of a second on the old dial scales. Now we have this much larger scale with 10 seconds spread over 360 degrees, so it's easy for me to see that I am looking at 2 seconds and 8 tenths. That's how you read that. It's also just very cool objectively to look at. Green lacquer dial with the Zenith signature overlapping tritone registers. You can see each one has an azurage pattern or a concentric design inboard. You'll also note that we have, I'm going to stop the chrono for a second, we have a running seconds display over at 9 o'clock, but then we have a chronograph seconds display over at 3 with a 60-minute register for the chrono down at 6. There is no chronograph hours. That's the one price you pay for using this system, but I rarely time anything over an hour. I actually like having a chronograph minutes register that goes up to 60. They did things right on this dial. You can see that the date disc is the same color as the dial. I happen to like the date disc that doesn't replace a index. Let's do a loom shot real quick. No shortage there. Fascinating how the dial has a diamond-like profile when the lights are out, but easy to read the time. Now, because this is the second generation El Primero, I know it took a long time to reach that second generation. It only arrived in 2019. Remember, the original El Primero came out in 1969, or at least it was gazetted to that effect. We have a stop seconds function that the original El Primero did not include. And we'll make sure we're not in the date change danger zone here. But we also have a quick set date that allows us to rapidly cycle the date if we wish to. Has a nice mechanical feel. I'll also mention that the crown works conventionally. On the old El Primero, the intermediate position set the hand, whereas here, now that it has conventional hacking, you just pull the crown out all the way, then you set it, and the intermediate position sets the date. So, rolling around, by the way, note those lovely rhodium-plated applique steel indices and the fact that each one features a black patch up top for higher contrast and better reading. You can also see outboard there's a little rejo with a brushed steel sheen that helps you read those tenths if you wish to do so that way. Taking a look at the movement, one quality every El Primero chronograph has had is that it tends to be a good-looking family of automatic chronos. Now, a lot of automatic chronographs are not handsome. They have vertical clutches you can't see and enormous winding bridges that block your view of the works, whereas here you can easily see the lateral clutch, the column wheel, and even some of the heart cams for resetting and the hammers that fall on the heart cams. So you've got the column wheel action. You can see the column wheel in blue, very crisp to the touch in this El Primero caliber 3600. You can see the traditional lateral clutch. The watch has a 5 hertz beat rate, automatic winding with a 60-hour power reserve, up 10 from the original El Primero. You can see they still use a combination of Edicron for fine adjustment and beat error correction, as well as their eccentric screw micrometric regulation system. You do still have the 10 beat per second, 36,000 vibration per hour beat rate, and you can see just adjacent how the mechanism for the striking 10th foudroyant works. Though you can't see it, we do have a silicone escapement that reduces the friction, the mass, and the need for lubrication. So that's a feather in the cap of the Zenith watchmakers. And you can see all this has a really cool sort of anthracite sheen to it. 35 joules, one more than the old El Primero typically had. A good-looking, large-scale manufacture movement. And then, of course, all this 100 meters water resistance, so you can swim with it. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.